Welcome to Lit Vibes Only, where we lit the shit out of books we love and hate. I'm Kelsey.
I'm Amanda, and this is our final episode of 2024.
Dang.
Y'all,
Oh
it's
my
been a good
gosh.
year. It's been a good year. But before we start reminiscing, want to remind y'all where to find us on socials. If you're not already following us, we are on
Please do.
Instagram at litvibesonly_podcast, and we are on TikTok and YouTube at Lit Vibes Only Podcast. So come on over, have a chat with us, comment, like, follow, all the wonderful things. We want to hear
Ooh.
from you.
The rating and reviewing makes it possible for other people to see our podcast on any major podcast platform. So please also do those things.
Yes,
Like, comment.
I keep forgetting to say that.
Thanks.
Now that I know I've said this before, but now that the sticker giveaway is over, I'm like, oh yeah, we
Not
still need
pressing
people to
it.
do that.
Yeah, we
we're
definitely
not-
still need that.
Please rate and review us. It takes like 2 seconds and it does wonders for us. So please and thank you.
Yes.
And you can also just chat with us about things that are happening in the book world.
Mhm.
Like, oh my goodness.
This is going to be super relevant, actually.
Yeah.
This is a really fast turnaround for us.
Yeah, we're
Episode.
recording this like a week before we drop, which is not what we normally do. So
Not at all.
we can actually talk about something that's happening right now, and it won't be super late when this comes out.
Yeah.
Which will be nice. But yeah, the whole continuing, I can't believe it's still going
Oh
on.
my
It's
God.
December, like the drama with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni and the whole
Yeah.
It Ends With Us debacle. Like, I thought that was done and dusted, and here we are with new information.
With the whole ass lawsuit.
I know. And one of our listeners, EJ, sent me the New York Times article about it, which I then sent to Kelsey. And if you've been following our podcast, you know that we did a bonus episode about this movie, and we were pretty much Team Justin. Like, we were we were pretty squarely in like the Team Justin camp, and now I feel like with a lot
the
of people,
episode
we're all
did
like,
not.
Yeah, it didn't age well.
God, I was trying to think back into like what we said. I was like, were we that Team Justin?
We were, and we were not happy with Blake for a number of reasons. It wasn't just that she seemed to be promoting the movie as more like this like fun rom-com and all about the florals, but also because we didn't think she was like the best casting for the role, and we didn't like her costuming. So we definitely dragged her through the
things
mud.
Outside of
even beyond this.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about it too, because I remember seeing those interviews with her where she was just being a jerk to the interviewer. And so things like that, I'm like, was that edited by Justin's team? Did we just like
I think that's how she
or that's just how she is?
I think that's actually how she was in those
I feel less bad
interviews. But at the same time, like, context matters. And so if we're already going into watching these interviews thinking like, oh, like she's the quote unquote bad guy or bad girl, then it's going to make it look even worse than maybe it actually was, especially because I don't know if you remember from the article, the woman, what country is she from? Is she Swedish? Anyhow, the one that did the interview where she's talking about Blake's like baby bump and Blake snaps back at her. She actually was also involved in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation, and she used interviews with Johnny Depp and did #justice for Johnny. So I feel like she's probably in this a bit more deep than we think, and like is something that, you know, these PR folks use, or someone, you know, to like further their smear campaign, which is wild to just
super wild
extensive this
but
is.
There was another interview where she was just, it wasn't about the baby bump thing, but her and her friend were being like just jerks to them, and just being like, I don't remember exactly. I don't exactly remember what happened, but that was another one that was like, what?
It was the one where they were talking about, the interviewer was asking them, I think, about their costumes, right? And what they wore in the show. And Blake was like, if we were men, would you be asking us this question? And like the two of them went back and forth about it. And then
we're talking to each other rather than the interviewer.
Yes. Yeah. It was that one, which, like, again, in one context, you could understand, like, okay, yeah, it's all about appearances for women and like what you wear versus the content of what you're producing. So you could easily look at that from a different angle and be like, no, like she's just defending, like, you know, women and like the kind of stuff we have to go through.
Potentially, yeah.
No, it really, context matters.
Dang.
But I think for me, the most alarming thing about the whole situation, and I was talking about this with EJ, is that it was largely two women who were behind this campaign. Like, it was largely being driven by, what were their names? Abel and Nathan. I think they're listed in the article. And I'm like, damn, like here are two women doing their darndest to take down another woman. And at one point, one of the text messages, when like the smear campaign is like taking off and becoming successful, they're just like, man, people really love to hate on women or something along those lines. And I'm just like, yeah. And this is a perfect example of that. Like,
and
it was just really
we were also part of
I
that.
know. We were just fully manipulated. And I think big picture, what this made me like, it made me really skeptical about, as like regular citizens who don't have the time to do a ton of fact checking and digging, or just don't have access to certain information, we are so much like left to the whims of people in power. And we did the best we could with the information that we were given and that we had access to. And like, that was our truth. And so just looking at how easily we were all manipulated to believe a particular narrative. And even right now, like, who knows, like maybe it'll come out 3 months from now that this whole thing was like just another PR stunt to kind of turn the tables. So it just makes me wary of what the heck do we believe?
I know.
Like,
I don't. Yeah. In the end, I think part of the lesson here is that celebrities be celebritying. They deal with like, and I just think whether or not this goes like to like actual court, or we hear from these people, and I've heard from people on the internet who have actually like read the document, there's like really awful things in there that supposedly Justin was doing, and or that Blake is alleging he has done. And not just her, I'm hearing that there's like statements and things from other people, and there's like text messages and things from Justin's team. The other thing that was compelling for me though was because I knew Justin Baldoni from his show. What's that show?
Jane the Virgin.
Yeah. And then I started following him back in that day, and then his social media is all about like human rights, you know? And I'm just curious, like, is that, because that could be just his team's PR, right? Like, this is the face that I want, so this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we're gonna curate this.
Yeah. So you just never know, is ultimately, I think, the thing. And I feel awful if these things did happen to Blake or any other women. That's shitty.
Exactly. It's awful, and it's crazy how easily, we were all turned to one side or the other. And like, of course, this goes beyond celebrities. Like, it would be one thing if like this just happened within the celebrity circles, but like this happens in politics and in ways that are way more impactful and, you know, potentially devastating for different people groups and honestly for our country as a whole. And so like zooming out, like that makes me really a little terrified. The ways in which social media and the media can be used to spin a narrative that is so compelling and so convincing that we all just like don't question. Even if we question it, like that's the thing. Even if we did, it's like, where would you go to then find the quote unquote truth? Like, where is that? Where does truth live anymore? So
the other thing, because you know, we follow Books and Betches.
Yes, I saw. Yeah, I know.
Did you see her recent? Like, she's always, I think that's Erica, where she is always like, well, and the like brings up other points and stuff. And one of the points I remember her bringing up is that it's also a PR stunt for Blake's team at in this moment, whether or not this stuff is true, right? The timing. Yes, the timing of it is Justin's team isn't going to be able to really make an impact until a week or so later because it's Christmas now and people are not going to be paying as much attention. But they dropped it the Friday before Christmas, and so it's going to be this big story, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it's all very strategic. That's the thing. Like, everything is, and you can tell just even from reading the article, like it's so strategic, so carefully planned and executed. I think there was another point that Erica made now that she brought that up, was that, which I found less compelling, was that she's like, how could all of this stuff have been happening if Ryan was on set? Like, what, he was just sitting by and letting these things happen to Blake? And I'm like, I was not under the impression that Ryan was on set like every day all the time. So I don't know
I thought that was the story. And that was like the whole reason why Justin's team was like, why? Like there was a big kerfuffle over why
he definitely had input and was there at times. I just didn't think he was there every day. And I'm like, so things could have happened while he was not present. But so I was like, I don't know if that's a great counterpoint. But anyhow, all that to say.
But some people are saying that is why he was there in the end, Ryan Reynolds, because
things were going sideways. Yeah.
So who knows?
Who knows? Like, honestly, the only people who truly know are the people who were there and experienced and witnessed it. And we are just on the outskirts making assumptions and drawing conclusions and getting whatever scraps of information we can to formulate an opinion. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you all have been following along with this whole story and have your own thoughts and opinions and theories, feel free to share them, because I think the whole thing is pretty wild and also just sheds light on how easily we all can be manipulated.
Yes. Hey, in other news, of Colleen Hoover news.
Oh yes.
We got the other two casting members for Verity. So what is it? Dakota Johnson
is going to be Lowen. I know. I always like flip flop them in my head.
I think that's a good casting.
I think it's a great casting because she, I think, will come across, of course, as like this sweet, naive, like docile person. And so when you realize, hopefully they're going to show this, like there's like this weird underlying layer of naughtiness,
mental illness.
And a slight derangement, it's gonna come for you hard, especially also with Josh Hartnett, who is going to be playing Jeremy, because he is very much, we were talking about this before, like I think he's very much like the guy next door, very likable, charming, and so when you see him slowly, those layers get peeled back and you're like, oh.
I think the more recent like photos of him, I'm like,
I haven't seen.
They'll definitely just like be, I don't know how old he is. He's like older, I think.
You know what? Now. I remember him. I had the largest Josh Hartnett crush in high school because I watched Pearl Harbor. He was like my heartthrob crush. Like he was my dream man in high school. He is forever frozen in that time for me.
He just looks kind of rugged now. Like it probably will go well with the casting.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting. He got his gross mustache. Like
he has changed a bit. Well, we'll see how they style him for the movie though.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But he was in, oh my God, the murderer one.
The new one that came out?
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't it like the M. Night I can never say
in the M. Night Shyamalan's movie.
Shyamalan, thank you. Yes.
So Sadie and I went to go see that one.
Yes.
That's why he's giving me the creeps. Okay.
I didn't watch it, so
I watched it and he did a good job in that. So I think that he's gonna do a good job with Jeremy. Because
I think he can play both, right? He can be like this charismatic, handsome guy and also be like a little
And here's a picture of him in Pearl Harbor.
Oh my gosh. I cannot tell you how many times I watched that movie. And it's long too. Like Pearl Harbor is a long movie. But I love history and I love Josh Hartnett.
That was like me and Lord of the Rings.
Oh my gosh. Orlando Bloom.
With Orlando Bloom. Oh, but then eventually it went to Viggo Mortensen. Yeah. Oh my God.
Same. It like as I got older and kept watching, I was like, oh yeah, actually, I'm definitely, what is his name? Aragon? Okay. Well,
moving on.
It is time to wrap up 2024. It has been a good year. And even though we just started this podcast in September, we have been talking about this podcast for like since the beginning. Yeah, I think for the whole year. We definitely started talking about it at the beginning of this year. And so this has been a full year journey for us so far, even though we didn't get our episodes out until September. So
how many months is that? Is that only 4? September, October, November, December. Yeah.
So 4 months of actual podcasting and then like 6 months of planning and getting excited and brainstorming. And so we're gonna like walk through our top reads of the year and we're gonna answer some questions for y'all. and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yay.
So we tried to narrow
Drum roll.
down our list because we only decided to share our top 5 books, but we kind
Amanda
of cheated. Both of us did.
quite a
Okay,
lot.
first of all, Kelsey cheated because there's
You
a
have
series.
4 entire books
You
separate
have
from
a
the
series
list.
that has 3 books in it listed as 1, so it's fine. Plus, I put them as honorable mentions. Anyhow, we'll get to that. So we're going to go through our top 5 books of the year and just kind of tell you kind of briefly what we liked about them, and maybe we'll spark your interest in reading them in this upcoming year, or maybe you've already read them. So Kelsey, do you want to kick it off with your first book?
Sure. This was my first read of the year, and it has stayed at one of the top spots in my heart. Love You Sona by Romina Garber.
Yes.
I think we discussed this book. Did I suggest it for
it was for Hispanic, like Latina Heritage Month.
Yeah. It's a good book. I just loved it. And Amanda really liked it. So
I loved it.
It like crosses over like our normal
the divide.
Yeah. So it's more along the lines of like magical realism, where it's partially in the real world, current world, and partially in a new made up fantasy world. But what is her name? Manu. It's about her living in both worlds and finding her identity and so much more.
And it's so good. It's so good. Highly recommend. We've talked about it, I think, enough on this podcast in various episodes that if you've been following along, you know what it's about and why we love it. Okay, so my first book, the first book that I read last year, or this year, I guess, was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. And pretty much anyone who I talk about books with has heard me recommend this book. I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast, maybe in passing. I don't think so. Loved this book. It's one of those books that just like lingered with me long after the last page. And essentially, it's a retelling of David Copperfield that is set in Appalachia in modern day. And I loved it. One for that. So I was like, it was fun to see the ways that she reimagined the different elements of David Copperfield. But I also liked it because I spent part of my childhood growing up in Appalachia. And so there was also kind of a personal connection to the story. And it's not, I think Appalachia itself often gets overlooked when we think about the history of our country, when we think about the current like socio-political landscape. And there's a lot there. There's a lot of culture there. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of struggle there. And it really dives into the ways that like poverty and addiction has really affected that area of our country and the ways that people are still looking to carve a life for themselves in that area. And I think just shining a light on it was really impactful for me. So I really enjoyed it and highly recommend. 5 stars.
Cool. Sure. I'll go in order of when I read these, since that's kind of how it started. So the next book is Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is part of the Throne of Glass series, which I think Amanda would actually like more than the other books we've read. It's more focused on, you know, history and world building and war and fighting and conflict rather than, you know, like the love stories. There's some of that. And I think more of it in the latter half of the books. I still have 3 books left in this series, but so far this one was my favorite. Yeah, I loved it.
Did you like it for the reasons that you just listed, like that I would like it, or did you like it for the romance?
There's not much romance in it in this book. It's more about Selena Sardathian's backstory and who she is. And it's her developing her powers and fighting off really bad guys.
Cool. Okay, so it's more like character development then.
Yeah, there is like flirtation between her and another character, but it's not, it's a very long burn amongst various books. So it's not.
I'm here for the long burn.
Yeah.
The slow burn, I guess it's called.
I guess that's for sure. It's long, slow burn.
Long, slow burn.
So yeah, no, that is, All right. I think you would especially like the third book, which is I'd have to think about it. Midnight something. But
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
there's just a lot
All
of like
right.
twists and turns and things. And so I think you would like that too.
All right. Well, we'll see. I
Right.
have to start. I'm going to start A Court of Mist and Fury today.
Oh my
So
goodness.
the goal is
Definitely
to get
tell me
it
how you,
done
what you
over
think
to get it done over Christmas break so I
of
can go on
it.
to other things.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Okay, so my next book, I don't know if this is actually in order, but my
Okay.
next book that I really enjoyed was The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. I hope I'm saying that last name correctly. And ooh, why did I like this book? It was sad.
That sounds like a Kelsey
And
book.
yeah, so it basically is telling the story of a group of friends who became friends like kind of during the peak of the AIDS epidemic in the United States. I believe
Mm,
it takes place in Chicago. And again, I read this book earlier in the year, so I apologize if I don't get the details
mm.
correct. But I liked it primarily. It's not so much plot driven. There is plot there, but it really is about the connections and relationships between these characters and how
Mm.
they survive like this really traumatic period. And there's multiple timelines. There's two different timelines as well, which you know I love. So there's like a historical timeline and a contemporary timeline. But I just thought it was really well written. I was very moved by the story, and I feel like I learned a lot about that particular period in our country's history and
Mm.
the ways in which our society kind of failed to step up and support and care for the individuals who are suffering from AIDS. And yeah, it reminded me, I don't want to like overgeneralize and just be like, oh, well, this was another story that included AIDS, but it made me think a little bit of Rent, and not
Mm.
just because like that is a part of the story in Rent, but because of the musical itself, I think, is like all about the connections between the characters and their
100%.
relationships. And
Mm.
that is very much true with The Great Believers. So for me, I felt like there were some parallels while I was reading it. And I love Rent
Okay.
as well. So that's my
Yes.
second one.
Nice. Oh my gosh, that's only your second one. Okay, my third one would be Powerless by
Of
Lauren
course.
Roberts. Oh my God. The tension between these two characters, I fucking love it. And I really also loved it because it had, oh my gosh, I always do this Hunger Games vibes where
Oh,
these,
okay.
again, trials. I really love it when, I don't know why, but I get down
Yeah.
with some
Some
hard
trials and
trials.
tribulations.
It is also emotionally devastating.
Okay. Yeah. Very Kelsey. Very Kelsey
Yes,
of you.
yes. And frustrating. So, yeah, I really love the world too. So, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And I feel like you've been hinting that you're going to have me read this at some point. So I'm bracing myself,
Oh, 100%. And I
bracing
already
myself
know
for
you're
that.
gonna hate it, like loathe it. Not just hate it, like you're gonna loathe this one.
Oh God. Well, it'll make for a great episode. It'll make for a great
Not
episode.
that long of a book, I don't think.
Oh,
So,
perfect. Even better. Okay. So my next book is Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah.
all right.
And I have never read a book like this. And I think that's one of the reasons why I selected it, because the premise was so just different. And the premise is, and
Okay.
again, I did mention this on the podcast maybe a couple months ago because it was my current read. And it essentially tells the story of it's in the United States, and this United States, the prison system has been set up where people can
Mm,
join this gladiator style,
trials.
yeah, like this gladiator style like game essentially, where they can decide to join this program, and essentially if they can survive, they earn their freedom. So it's like very much modern day
Nuts.
gladiator, and it's
Mm,
wild. And I think the thing that I liked about it is that he very much wrote the book as like a commentary on our prison system, our criminal justice system.
yeah.
And throughout the book, there are all of these footnotes that tell you about actual,
Mm,
data, statistics, anecdotes that are outlining all of the injustices and horrors that are currently happening in our criminal justice
mm,
system, and the
yeah.
ways in which class and race play a huge role, right? And who is getting sentenced and for how long. And yeah,
Hmm.
just all of the flaws of our criminal justice system. So it's both entertaining and devastating and also very educational. And I thought it was also well written. He's definitely a great writer. And I just felt it was compelling and captivating. And I cannot recommend it enough, especially if, you read a lot of books and you're looking for something that's going to give you something a bit different, but also be incredibly all the things I just said: compelling, captivating, educational, devastating.
Yeah.
It
Everything
was
Amanda loves in a book.
All the things I love in a book. Highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, actually it's on my list as well. I just don't know
I don't know
when
if you're
I'll
gonna
be
like it.
in the mood for it. Yeah, I
You
have to be in the mood.
it's heavy. It's for sure heavy. So you have to be in the right
Yeah.
mood to read it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just realized that Fourth Wing isn't on my list.
Oh no, what a tragedy.
I'm putting it in my honorable mentions,
Fine.
Amanda. So the next book, that's one of my favorites of the year, would be Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. Did you ever read it?
No, but it's on my TBR. I added
Yeah.
it because of you. Yeah.
You absolutely need to read it. And I want to read her second book. I think I'll do that soon. But this book, a lot of it is just because I relate to it. And it's like telling part of my story, right?
Yeah.
And highlighting Indigenous culture, Indigenous life. It also has really, really sweet moments like with elders. It's a wonderful showcase of like elder love. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's also devastating and triggering at times too. But it is a really great, solid story. And I think you'll really like it.
Yeah. It also sounds like the plot is quite moving and intricate, and I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and surprising.
Yeah. And I added it to my TBR pretty soon after you mentioned it. I was like,
nice.
that description really grabbed me. Now I have to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so my fourth book is Clap and You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. And again, another book you've probably heard me mention on this podcast because I'm pretty sure I did when we were talking about, again, our current reads.
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Maybe not. I obviously mentioned Elizabeth Acevedo because she was one of the writers I recommended for our Hispanic Latina Heritage Month, LitRex. And Clap and You Land is another spoken word kind of slam poetry book. So it's not written, it's written kind of in verse. It's not written in prose. And it tells the story of these two half sisters. They don't know the other exists. And there is an incident that happens that leads to them discovering that the other one exists. And one of them, I believe, lives in the DR, in the Dominican Republic, and one of them is in the United States. And so, there's a lot of heartache and heartbreak in this story. I definitely cried, but it's so beautiful and so poignant. She's such a skilled writer, and it's not often that you read a novel that is written in the form of poetry. And I loved The Poet X, but I think I might like this one even more, honestly.
Wow.
So highly recommend both of her books, but this was definitely one of my top reads for the year. And it's also YA fiction too. So really accessible to lots of different age groups. Even though the protagonists are teenagers, like I very much was able to get invested in the story and connect. So really loved it.
Nice. That sounds like a good one.
It's a really good one.
I am struggling to understand how it's poetry throughout the whole thing. Is that what you mean? It's all poetry?
I want to say she's spoken word, not slam poetry, although honestly, I'm not really sure what the difference is. So it's written in verse and it doesn't rhyme, right? It's not like that style of poetry. But if you've ever heard like, a spoken word poet, that's what it sounds like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
This is my last books, right? Okay. So the reason why I can't choose,
she cheated,
y'all. Probably
she absolutely cheated.
Choose, but I'd have to like really think about what happens in each book because they all just like mesh together because I read them so like quickly. I have to remember like what happens in which one. But the Spark of the Everflame series is definitely one of my top 5 of the year, and we will absolutely be reading.
Oh my gosh, no! One of the books is like 1,000 pages.
Yeah, that was like
no, I can't commit to that. I'm sorry, unless I make you read a 1,000-page book.
You're also gonna hate you're gonna hate you're just going to hate it.
Okay.
Like the FMC and her point of view, especially, I think a lot of people complain about her being annoying, but I just loved it. I fell in love with the book, and it has a unique like magic system and world and the way that it works. And it's just, it intrigued me. And so fantasy fangirls are also going to be highlighting this book and doing a deep dive. And I cannot wait for it. I think they're starting in April after they finish with Onyx Storm, which is the third book of Fourth Wing.
Oh, Fourth Wing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I have heard so much about this series, so clearly a lot of folks enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. My fifth book, which I read most recently, and again, I'm pretty sure I mentioned on this podcast as a book I was currently reading, is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, y'all. Like, it's not even like the I don't know, the best book I've ever read, but I think because it just incorporated so many elements of what I love in one book and did it so well. And I think I also read it after just reading a couple books that didn't really blow me away too. So I think it stood out even more. But it has elements of like thriller, mystery. It's technically historical fiction. It has multiple timelines. It's a sweeping family saga. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It also has themes of female empowerment and agency. And I just really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed their messiness. I enjoyed that everyone had their flaws and issues. It was a very human book. And you know me, you know I love it. So God of the Woods, y'all.
I've heard good things.
Don't sleep. Yeah, don't sleep on this one. And it's also, I feel like sometimes books like this could be overly literary, where they can be dense or slow or just, be more esoteric. And this one, I think, is very accessible. I wouldn't say it's like a beach read, but it's very easy to get through. And the language is very accessible. The plot moves along at a good clip and keeps you wanting more. So I think it just encapsulates all of the things I love about a novel.
Do you think I would like it?
Oh, you're tricky. I don't know. Like, I truly don't know. I mean, there are elements of like a little bit of romance, but not so much. I feel like you would have a very like yellow face reaction to it, where you're like, yeah, it's a good book. Like, on the surface, I would think it's boring and I wouldn't pick it up on my own. But if I made you read it, I think you wouldn't not like it. I just don't think it's your kind of book.
Okay. I've just heard good things about it. So
I would love it if you read it, and maybe I'll make you read it. But I think you would, I think you would have a very like you'd be able to see that fantasy. Like, you'd be able to see that it's a good book, and I think you would get through it and wouldn't have anything negative to say about it per se, but you would not be like, oh my gosh, I love this book too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyhow, that's my last one.
Fun.
I know I created an honorable mentions list because it was too hard to narrow it down to 5. And also because Kelsey cheated and put a series which has multiple books. So for the honorable mentions, I won't give you a description for each of them just for the sake of time, but I will literally just mention them. So I have 4 honorable mentions.
I'm just trying to think if I have like more.
If you have more, well, I'll read through mine.
Okay, I have a couple at least.
Okay. So my 4 honorable mentions are Codename Helene by Ariel Lahan, The Most Fun We Ever Had by Claire Lombardo, The Latecomer by Jean Hunf, Correlates, and The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. And that's kind of a mix. They're mostly contemporary fiction. Codename Helene is historical fiction. But one of the things we don't talk about a lot on this podcast so far is that, because we focus a lot on the fact that I do like historical fiction and thrillers and mysteries, I'm also a huge fan of contemporary fiction and read quite a bit of it. And pretty much all of those, except for Codename Helene, are contemporary fiction, and I really enjoyed them.
Well, there you go. Okay. I do have a few that I can mention. Okay. First off is going to be Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And I just have to say, I know I know you didn't say anything about them, but it got me out of a really awful reading slump. And
Oh, you did mention that. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Also, The Truth According to Ember by Danica. Oh gosh, what's her name?
Oh.
Danica Nava. It was a romance novel. And I felt very seen by it. It was a Indigenous woman character. And is that the last one? Oh, I was going to say Red Paint by
Sasha LaPointe.
Sasha LaPointe. I was like, Latasha. Oh, I have a cousin named Latasha. It's like confusing me. Sasha LaPointe. So those will be my honorable mentions.
Okay, great. Well, again, if you've read any of these books and have your own thoughts, share them with us, please. Or if you're planning to read them, if we like convinced you from our little blurbs, also let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A just to kind of give you a summary of our reading experience this year and share a little bit more about that with all of you. Also, you know, a little bit about the podcast as well. So, and we can switch back and forth reading the questions. I'll read the first one. So what was your reading goal this year and did you reach it? You can answer first, Kelsey.
I have never read so many books in a year, actually. And my goal was 30, and I did surpass it. Right now I'm at 36, but I fully intend to read at least like 2 more books beyond Iron Flame, which is what I'm in right now. The second book of Fourth Wing. I have to be ready for Onyx Storm, all right? So maybe getting me possibly to 40. We'll see. But
that would be 4 more books, not 2 more.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, you said 2, so I was like, wait a minute. I know I'm not good at math.
But basically what I'm saying is 3 more books for sure, maybe 1 more to get to 40. We'll see.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm on winter break, so who knows what can happen.
All the time in the world. Although winter break is late this year, so it doesn't end until like the second week or the first full week of January.
The last day of December is like next Tuesday or next Monday. So
it's next Tuesday, I think. Yeah. We definitely have time. We have a week. A lot can happen in a week. For me, my goal was 45, and I, at the moment, have read 53. I am about to start A Court of Mist and Fury today, and it's long. So we'll see if how quickly I get through, because I would like to do 2 more this year and end with 55. So we'll see if I can do that. I am traveling, so I'm like, I'm gonna have time at the airport and on the airplane. So that should help. But yeah, I was really proud of myself. Also, I don't think I cannot remember the last time I've read that many books in a year either. And I think I have like this podcast, I think, because it really does help kind of light a fire. And I'm like, okay, well, I for sure have to read this book for the podcast. And then I also have books I have to read for book club too. So both of those things have helped for sure. All right. You want to read the next question?
So what is your reading goal for 2025?
So since I made it to 53, maybe 54, 55 this year, I've figured I'd set it at 50 because I think it's disheartening to set a goal and not reach it. And I feel like, okay, I know for sure I can read 50 because I did it this year over 50. So I'm like, I'm going to set it at 50 and then hopefully surpass it again. I think the thing with reading goals too, not to like go on a rambling answer, but it really depends on life, you know,
100%.
Depending on like what's going on at work and how busy I am in events, etc. Like you just might not have time, and reading takes time.
1 week I had COVID and I read a bunch of books during that time. So like it really does depend. And I had a couple reading slumps this year where I didn't read, like I maybe read like a book a month, but then in the summer, like I read 20 books, right? Like my life definitely ebbs and flows, especially for the seasons.
Yeah. But I think, I'm going to try and get most of my books in over the summer.
I'm going ambitious here for myself, and I want to set mine at 50.
Okay, so we're both at 50.
Yes, but that is pushing it for me. So we'll see. Yeah. We shall see.
We shall see. It's always good to have a challenge. Yeah. Okay. Next question. What was the longest book you read, Kelsey?
It was Heat of the Everflame. The way I brought it for show and tell.
For those who are watching this on YouTube. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Look at this giant book.
That's insane. That's literally 3 books in one.
It is. And then this was the one before, which is like
still really lengthy.
600 books. So this is
600 books, 600 pages.
Kelseyisms. This is 400 more pages than this one.
Wild. See,
And
here's the thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I loved every second of it. I wasn't bored though. Like,
no,
it's
that's great.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then this one was the first one, which is much smaller and also has bigger font. So I was like, oh, I'll get through this fast. 422. So
okay.
Anyway, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, whenever I see books that long, all I can think about is the writer writing. I'm like, how do you write
Yeah.
more than 1,000-page book? Like, what kind of attention and focus do you have to craft something of that length? And like, also just like keep all the details straight and the plot lines and the characters. Like, that is insane.
It is a ton of work. I can't even imagine. And there's one more book coming out this year called Burn.
Okay.
And I don't know how many pages that is. We'll see.
Okay.
If it's another 1,000, I'm reading it in 2 days. I don't care.
I'm going to look up actually, because I obviously, as a contemporary fiction reader, historical thriller, like some historical fiction books can get quite lengthy, but they're generally not that long. And I think for me, I just had to pull it up. The longest book, I think, not that I've ever read, but that I've read in somewhat recent years, was Pillars of the Earth. And even that was only 976 pages. And I was like, oh, that was like, it was good. It kept me reading, but I was like, that was a long book. So
I feel like Justin Cronin Justin Cronin's book was only 560 pages. Wait, 540 pages.
Do you mean The Ferryman?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was also a good book. I should put that on my mentions. Okay. My longest book was only 599 pages. And it was Fairy Tale by Stephen King. It is the only Stephen King book I have ever read, because I don't do horror. And it's a departure from what he normally does. I mean, there are scary parts to it, but it's for sure not a horror.
Did you like
novel.
it?
And I really loved it.
My friend is reading that right now.
Yeah, I love Fairy Tale. So the title grabbed me, and I was like, oh, maybe now is the time to do some Stephen King. And basically, the premise is this young boy a teenage boy finds this portal to this fairy tale world, and things happen, and
I might enjoy that.
Great. You would like it, actually, because it definitely, it has a huge fantasy element, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think you would like it. It's not super romancy, but it's definitely got the fantasy element for sure. Yeah.
I can do fantasy without romance.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you can't. I just feel like most of the books you read are a blend of both.
I do.
They're mostly romantasy.
Them, yes.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not off base here.
How many pages did you read this year?
Oh, are you looking up on your Goodreads?
Yeah, my Goodreads.
I think mine was like 19,000 something. Yours is going to be like off the charts.
No, it was 15,000, because
because you had less books 40. Though. Yeah, that's true.
But I'm just sitting here looking at that. I was like, that's one book. 1,000 of that is
one book. Yeah, mine was 19,315.
Yeah. Which you read how many more books?
I read
almost 15, almost like 10-ish.
I have 53 and you have 36. I can't do the math. So sure. Okay. So 12 more books.
That's going to bother me, but
are you doing the math right now?
Yeah, trying to. It's around that. Okay. But anyway, so that's quite a few more books.
It is.
But
let's see.
Yeah, I think the length
it's 17
of our
more books.
Definitely...
I just did the math on my calculator.
Whoa, I was off.
Yeah, 17. I was like, 12 doesn't
Thank
sound
you for
right.
doing that. So yeah, you definitely read shorter books than the fantasy.
Well, actually, so scroll down though, go back to your Goodreads, and it'll tell you the average length of the books you read.
Oh yeah,
what's your average length? Because it's
433.
How much is it?
433.
Yeah, mine's 364.
Yeah.
So like my average book length is definitely shorter for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of lengths, what was the shortest book that you read this year?
Red Paint by Sasha LaPointe.
Okay. And it was
225
pages? That's what you
read? Yeah, 225. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I read The Vegetarian by Hong Kong, and it was 188 pages, and I really did not like it, but at least it was quick. It's like this Pulitzer Prize winning book, and I just found it. I think I've mentioned this. It was too esoteric for me. I did not enjoy it.
Where did you do the most time? Where did you? Oh my God!
Where did you spend
the most time reading this year?
That's okay. I wrote that question, so I wrote it how I would have said it. I spend most of my time reading in my adorable pink armchair that I got off of like Craigslist or something. Or no, Facebook Marketplace.
Is that in your bedroom?
Ago. It's in my bedroom.
Okay, I was like,
I
don't even know where.
Yeah, it's like tucked away, and it's right by the window, and I have a little like my little reading lamp, and it's so cozy.
Yeah. Honestly, probably in bed.
Okay,
that's where I read the most, I think.
Yeah,
especially like being sick, or I mostly read before bed. So
yeah,
same. I lay in bed and then I read.
I would love that. I just like, I'm so old. I'm like, it just hurts my back. Even if I have pillows propped up, I need something that's a bit more firm. So I need my chair because I'm an old lady.
So
but
funny.
My dream is to have, this is going to make me sound even older.
Oh my gosh. Tell us.
Dream is to have a recliner. I want like a full-on recliner, like lazy boy. I find that the most comfortable to read in. And growing up, I would always read in my like my recliners at my parents' house. So that's what I want. Like
it's not comfy to me. What I really like is like a plush, big old like couch. And something I can put like my arms on. There's these like couches that are round, and then it has like what is it called?
I don't know. What are you
like the head thing or the armrest all the way around, halfway around, I guess, not all the way around. And so it's like you could lean on it and stuff. That is mine.
I'm not sure if I'm visualizing this correctly, but I believe you that it is comfortable for reading.
When it comes out, this episode, I'll have to post like a picture of it.
Yeah, so our listeners are going to be like, I cannot visualize at all what she's describing. But yes, I would like a recliner. I feel like it would just make my back feel much better when I'm reading. And then I can read for even longer. Okay, next question. What was your favorite podcast episode this year?
Ooh, I think mine was ACOTAR. Just being so excited for the conversation.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I got so excited. What was yours?
Mine was definitely Twilight. I think just because I had so strong feelings about it. And also because that is still, I think, the podcast that I've gotten the most feedback from people about, because people have such strong opinions, and like having that interaction with our listeners is the best, right? And everyone's like, I can't believe you said that, or like, this
it definitely elicited the strongest emotions from people.
For sure. Especially since I like totally trashed it. So that was my favorite for sure.
Okay. And then what book are you most looking forward to next year?
Oh my goodness. So I actually have a list, and then I like added them all to my TBR. And I'm only going to do the one though, because I want to be mindful of time, but I'm really excited for this book. It's called The Queen's Spade by Sarah Rothli. I think that's how you say her name. And I like pulled this description straight from the actual description for the book. It is a historical thriller loosely inspired by true life events. Essentially, it's the Count of Monte Cristo meets Bridgerton. And I'm like, oh my God. Everything in this description is speaking to me because I love history. I love thrillers. I love when historical fiction is like at least somewhat connected to something that actually happened. And this tells the story of this African princess who was essentially kidnapped and taken to live in England during the 1800s. And in this version of history, she basically is super pissed off, obviously, and is plotting to take down the monarchy. And so I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. And this is going to maybe will come as a surprise to our listeners, but I love Bridgerton. I know it's like super like romance and smut, but I love it. And so all of those elements are making me so excited for this book.
See, Amanda, what is the difference between watching sex on TV and reading the sex?
Well, okay, but here's the thing with like Bridgerton. Aside from the first season, there's actually not a ton of sex in it. There really isn't. It's a lot of
naked people.
There's a lot of like slow burn, like, you know, enemies to lovers type situations.
But the last one definitely had sex in it.
No, there's definitely sex. But I wouldn't say it's the majority of the show though. Like if you look at the amount of sex scenes based on the actual screen time, like the length of the episodes, I don't think it's like overwhelming for me.
But also like in Fourth Wing, let's say, it's not. There
was like
not
the two
like the majority of
no.
Yeah.
And again, like I didn't find Fourth Wing overwhelmingly smutty. I just like didn't need it. Like if you had taken that out, I would be like, oh, this is
I'm reading book. Iron Flame and it's like more about the romance. And I was like, Amanda's gonna hate this.
Yeah. Well, because they're together now. So that like makes so much more sense. Yeah. Go ahead. What are you looking forward to?
But I guess, have you ever read the Bridgerton books?
No, and I will not read them.
They're awful. So if it's referring to Bridgerton books or the Bridgerton show,
I think it's referring to the show, or at least like the premise of the Yeah. Well, I think it's referring to Bridgerton because of like the time period that it's set in, and there is romance, right? There's definitely romance in this book. I'm not sure how much it's gonna be, how like prevalent, but yeah. Okay. So
to no one's surprise, Fearless, which is the final and third of the Powerless series, Onyx Storm, which is the third in the series for the Empyrean series, and Burn, which is the final book of Spark of the Everflame series. So I'm looking forward to all three of those. Yeah. And we're wrapping up 2 series. And so it's going to be a big year.
Yeah, it is. Because I guess Onyx Storm is like third of 5, right? Because you said there's going to be 5 books there's going to be 5 series.
I think that's still the plan. So yeah, it's the continuation. And it's going to suck because I pre-ordered it on my e-reader, but why did that suck? Why does that suck? I don't know why.
I don't know.
I'm going to read it right away and then have to wait like 2 more years for the next book, right? Like
exactly, which is why series suck so much.
It's so intriguing and I love all the characters. And
the only time I will read a series is if all the books are already out.
And you know what else is really fun about reading series is like you're not in pain by yourself because there's such a huge fan base for them. You get to like watch all the videos and talk to all the people about the series and how stupid it is that you have to wait so much longer. It actually, so
I think for me, I just like, and again, it's just I have a really shitty memory. Thanks, ADHD. If I have to wait 2 years for a book, I feel like I would need to go back and read the book again. And like, I don't like rereading. I rarely reread. Oh yeah. So that's something we haven't talked about. I like
interesting.
I don't know if
reread some books.
Ever reread
a
book? I don't know if I've ever reread a book.
Like that's in nuts. My life. That's nuts.
It's like, it's very me though. Like, one of the elements of having ADHD, right, is novelty. Like we need novelty, or I do, I should say, for me. And if something is not new and exciting and different, like it's not going to hold my attention. If I already know what happens in this book or like why I love it, or even with movies, I don't rewatch movies unless I have to. But yeah, I will, I watch like Elf every year at Christmas,
but it's not like you're just sitting there watching it. Like you're probably doing other things.
Because I'm always in the back of my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, like why would I be wasting time on something I already know when there's something new and exciting that I could be engaging with?
So I have the opposite part of that in my ADHD that shows up where it's like this obsession over something.
Yeah.
And so I think that can happen too with ADHD. And so like Pride and Prejudice, I've read maybe 5 times. Like I love that book. And I've watched that movie. I cannot tell you how many times. And like Lord of the Rings, like I've watched those movies like 20 different times. Like
sure. I have rewatched those. Yeah, for sure. Those are just like on the rotation,
but like actually watched, like sat down and like watched them.
Yeah.
Not doing other things.
Yeah.
Anywho,
all right. So
we've come to the final portion of our final episode of 2024.
Yes.
And this is new to Amanda. So
it's also, have you done this before with someone else?
No,
it's also new to Kelsey.
I didn't explain it well enough before the episode. So there are rapid fire questions. And typically with rapid fire questions, you don't answer them beforehand. So they're just like, what do you think in the moment? Okay. So I'm going to go and you're going to go. But Amanda answered some of them already. So there's some
there's some premeditated responses because I didn't know the rules. I'm sorry, guys.
But also that's my fault. I didn't really explain that to you.
So do we just go back and forth, or do you do all of yours and then I do all of mine?
I'm going to do all of yours and then you'll do all of mine. Okay. So I'll go first. So no explaining either. So it's just the thing and then move on. Okay.
But I love to ramble, Kelsey. What am I going to do?
Stop
Stick to the point. Okay. All right.
Okay. First question. What's the worst book you read this year from Kelsey's recommendations?
Divine Rivals, hands down.
Okay. And the best book?
Trail of Lightning.
Okay. How about which thriller surprised you the most this year?
The Only One Left by Riley Sager.
And then which book had your favorite book cover art?
Lobi Sona by Romina Garber.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Next ones. What is the most memorable podcast moment for you?
How do I do this in a short? I think the most memorable, I will just say episode wise, was Akatar. I think because I liked it more than I thought I was going to, and we had more time then to talk about like theories and dive into the characters and things like that.
See, fun. Okay. Favorite thing about producing a podcast?
Getting to hang out with Kelsey. Like it's like we have like built-in friend time every month that we absolutely will see each other, which I love.
That's true. And least favorite.
Oh my God. I think this is love-hate editing the episodes. I both enjoy it and it also takes so much time.
The time for it, right? And then your favorite thing about reading?
What? I have to do this like one sentence? Are you kidding me? I love escapism. I love indulging my imagination and experiencing other people's perspectives and lives. I have so many things to say about that.
Lovely. I like it.
Oh, that's painful.
I might agree with that, actually. Okay. I saw some of my books questions, but I
did not premeditate them.
I don't necessarily have. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Rapid fire for Kelsey.
I know the first one though.
Who is your current favorite book boyfriend?
Zayden Ryerson.
What's the worst book you read this year from Amanda's Rex?
Horse.
Oh,
hands down.
It's not.
None of this is true.
Okay. All right.
It was a close second, but horse has to be number one.
Okay. All right. What is the best one that I recommended for you?
Verity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you read more books or audiobooks this year?
More books.
Okay. Where else in the world did you read this year?
Ooh. Spain, Portugal, New York. Where else was I? On a plane over the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult book for you to get through this year?
There's two. Red Paint by Sacha Lapointe. And it was The Bastard of Istanbul. The Bastard of Istanbul.
Okay. Who is your favorite author, either from like this year or just in general? You can choose.
Ooh. Dang. Maybe Penn Cole right now?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then lastly, what is one thing you would change about our podcast journey so far?
We'd have more followers. And more people listening to the podcast. Obviously.
Yes. Okay. That's a good answer. I would absolutely agree. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Well,
that was a little stressful.
Yeah, it is stressful because like for me, I need time to process, and then I want to explain myself. Yeah. I need to go off on a tangent. I need to tell this one anecdote.
The tangents are tangenting in my head.
Oh, goodness, that's stressful.
It's fun,
but we did it. We did it. We made it to the end of 2024. Thank you guys so very much for sticking with us these last 4 months, and we are excited to kick off another year with you.
A full year.
We've got so much good content coming your way.
Where it's going.
Who knows where it's going? What will happen? Well, hopefully we have more followers. That's hopefully where it's going.
100%.
But yeah, we're excited to just explore more books and get to know you guys better and have more wonderful, wild conversations. And
absolutely.
Yeah, explore more things that we never thought we'd read and maybe find some new loves in the process.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you in the next year.
So cool. So exciting. But also see you next Monday.
See you next Monday. Bye.